yeah, target call should be clear. I mean, now it's more of DPS, I guess, or tank.
It's
Yeah,
more of DPS, but yeah.
I mean,
we
everybody
can.
can do it, right?
Yeah,
Like,
Yeah.
as long as we have somebody, as long as we have one direction, one target.
The
Obviously, if we,
problem,
yeah,
sorry.
no, go ahead.
The problem was as soon as the one that was calling the target, because sometimes we're even two, died, there was no target calling at all, even if the fight was winnable.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like that's why, it's like, see, everybody should have it on their own agenda. But obviously, we need to have kind of a, normally it's called an in-game leader or somebody that gives the direction if we have two different calls, right? Or like two difference or zero. This is normally the one where he needs to kind of give us a direction. Especially, I'm saying direction, I'm not saying target, because target is the same thing as a direction. If we call Ryan, then obviously, yeah, I guess we want to go aggressive, right? We want to push in. So the same thing could also be like, okay, let's go back, whatever, right? Like let's go in the tracer behind, whatever. It's just important that kind of everybody, like, it's a team game, right? Like, and as you said, like, sure, we have some responsibilities, some kind of like roles that do what, but to be honest, like, if you want to win a game, you have to do it as a team. So if we don't have ult tracking, then I don't say, oh no, I'm Tracer, I don't have to ult track. I don't care. Then the Tracer can also say they have trans, they have graph, and whatever, right? Like, I mean, just help each other out, and it's the same thing with the target calling. The only, like I said, the only problem is when we have like two different calls. Then we need to have somebody, best case, obviously pre-made. Like, this is like, oh, what I mean with pre-made, right? Is like we made clear before the match starts who is it that we listen to in this moment. But I encourage you more and more to just like everybody just basically calls what they're attacking, what they're seeing. And again, if we have too much communication, it's really like a luxury problem if we get to this point. And then we can easily just reduce it. Okay, great. Then, yeah, sounded like you had no more questions about the communication. Then, what do you want to talk about today?
We thought about a WOD review.
Sure.
I sent you a code. I don't know if we got time for like more maps, but I think to start, Hanamura is probably one of the bigger issues we had because they were playing like bunker, and TP bunker is pretty weird.
Like before we start with this, obviously, right? Like if somebody else has a different topic to talk about, like please bring it up. Even if it's like a small one, we can just quickly talk about it. Besides this, if we do the what view now, like what needs to happen basically in the review, that you get out of this session today and say, yeah, like this was helpful. Like what are your expectations basically when you say we want to make a what review basically?
The best thing is let's look at what did we do wrong with our not compass, but what did we do wrong, like how we played it. That would be good, and to know what did the enemy better so that they could kill us instead of we could kill them.
Sorry,
Like
what was the last thing?
Like what did they do the enemy so that we lost the fight?
Okay.
So what was the mistake, like, so we can fix the mistakes of us?
All right. Do you want to do this like from over like each fight, or do you want to look a little bit more faster over each fight and look for kind of some similarities? Like from my experience, there are kind of two types, right? Like there's the team that wants to just say, okay, like why have we lost like fight number, oh, different color. Why have we lost fight number 1? And then we obviously go over this fight in detail, and then we have like, I don't know, like reason, like there's one reason, another reason, another reason. Then we go over second fight again, right? And we have like maybe like different reasons. And then we already have like 6 kind of pointers which are super specific because they only are useful for this one specific situation in this one specific moment, which can be really helpful. Like I'm not judging, right? Like this is definitely a thing that can be helpful for the individual, but also for the team to get some kind of direction. Like this is option number one, and this option number 2 would be that we basically, I don't want to go speed, but we go like really quickly more over all of the fights and basically just look for the kind of the team arrow, and the end result will be that we maybe like watch like obviously more fights, but not even close to be as detailed, and we find out maybe like, I don't know, like 1, 2, 3 more like team and compositional mistakes when it comes to positioning, to response, how the strategy works, and so on. But yeah, less specific. So which kind, or like, do you have a third idea that you would be fine with?
Well, I think the best idea that we are a new team, so I think the second one is better because we have a lot of problems at the moment, and if you go too specific in that won't help with the bigger problems, I think. But yeah, I'm not so sure, honestly.
Okay, sure. Now, I mean, if you're a new team and so on, I would also recommend the second one. I'm just saying this not that we go out of the session, right? And then people say like, okay, I really completely expected it to be that it will be different, right? Just want to make sure that the expectations are on the same page, so that nobody, not you and not me, are then disappointed at the end. Okay, but yeah, sure. Then we can kind of do the second thing. Then, do you want to tell me a little bit about like why Hanamura, why this match? What stood out there that you say like we want to review this?
We have a lot of issues playing against double shield. We sometimes win 1 or 2 fights, but mostly of the time we just get bodied by double shield, and we don't know what we can do or where is the issue or something, because we can't figure out the problem to 100%.
Okay. Have you watched over it yourself once?
And I didn't have the time until now, no.
Okay, that's fine. Then I guess we jump to the moment where we play against double shield, I assume, right?
This should be the when we attack and they defend.
Right. Here it is.
Ready for battle.
Longer pause. There it goes. Okay. All right. And we are playing Brawl. Right, is this also the comp we want to go over, or like do you switch up off to something else afterwards?
I think the first fight we even win.
Okay. Yeah, you keep playing Brawl. All right.
No, I don't.
Okay. Then yeah, then let's talk about this. Maybe before we jump right into the action, how about we go quickly over the comp a little bit so that we have a similar understanding of what we want to accomplish. Right, like obviously you pick the 6 heroes to win an Overwatch map, right? We obviously need to win fights because then we can capture the objective. And to win fights, obviously, we need to do something. We need to do something like this, right? We need to do something, and at the end, we kill them to win the fight. I'm asking you right now, what is this something? Like basically, I don't even care about like you don't have to be specific about this map. And I also don't really mind about the map, about this like what they're playing. Just if you really only look at your 6 heroes or like at a strategy that you chose and so on and whatever, like how do you try to win a fight? Or like how do you get kills basically with this composition?
Well, without the Lucio, we have to force them to get onto us because we can't speed onto someone. So yeah.
I will just write it down. You can keep talking, or everybody obviously can chip in.
And we need to stay together. That's the most important thing in Brawl, especially with Baptiste and Brig. And yep, that's our win condition.
Okay. Anybody else wants to add something?
I think force them to come to us is not the right point in my opinion, but it's only my point. So
That's perfect. Like it's exactly like why we do this. Like you know, right? Like the thing is, obviously, yeah, sure. I could also just go ahead and just say everything. Or like obviously, I'm also not right with everything, right? Like the only things I'm saying is from my experience, and obviously, hopefully, give you some arguments that make sense. But the goal is not even that we do it right. The goal is that you, all 6 of you, have the same idea. So that's exactly why I'm asking you, so that kind of everybody gives their opinion, and it is even better, to be honest, if there are two different opinions. Because if you feel like this is not the right win condition, or like this is not really how we kind of win the fight, then this it gets even worse in the actual game, right? So that's
Right.
it's. I really want to encourage all of you to feel free to just say whatever you feel, even if you think it's, I don't know, dumb or not right or stuff like this. Always go for it.
I would say it's like a part of Brawl. It's like you can play it that way, but it's also like the goal is to get into them, like in range, without getting too much damage. So, like using cover a lot or just being quick.
Somebody else said, sorry, I cut him off, right? Like that you don't feel like this is the right win condition.
Yes, that was me.
Then keep going. Like, what do you think
I
is then, or like
the,
why do you think it's wrong?
the problem our comp that we play with a Brig is, in my opinion, you need a Lucio in Brawl because you want to focus or wanna go fast in and go ahead of a head fight. Yes, and I think with a Brig it's quite difficult to get speed, so to get good engages. Like,
Okay. So what can we do then instead if this is not the right way? But I mean, we played a Brig, so basically you're saying with Brig it doesn't make sense. We should always play Lucio. Or what's kind of your solution for this?
yeah, I mean we play Sim so we can port on them, but I don't know.
I mean, I feel like the Brig, in theory, should work on defense because, in theory, they come to us and we don't really have to like run into them because they run into us. But I can see like specific scenarios. Like, for example, they take a big flank and we need to speed around to another position where that should be a bit more difficult.
I think it could work on attack as well, since we have the Symmetro. We're going to be TPing onto the point and forcing them to fight if they want to not let us cap.
I think the point of this, or the problem that we had, you play Brawl like in much ways into another comp, like when they play double shield, you play it other than when they play like also a Brawl.
I agree. It's like kind of specific on what the others play and what map we're on, and if we're attacking or defending.
I mean, when they play like double shield, it's more like you wanna go quick in a quick engage and take much cover and then ball them very fast down. Like, yeah.
But the point was, yeah, we had to teleport. So we teleport on the point, and they have to contest the point,
Yes, but
or
but
they
but
lost.
when we go to point, then they will get more thing like the only thing you want to do as a double shield is taking much way to the other team and spam them down. Like when we go to point, and they can spam us from away and kill us from away because we don't can kill them. Then it's like, yeah, I don't know.
But on the other side as well, if we're that's Hanamura, right? If I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken. If like we technically TP to point, because as you said, like the weakness of double shield is close combat. If we can play cover and force them to come to point and play like a short range fight, then it's in our like interest. But yeah, I
think we're
agree. If
playing.
they have, I'm sorry.
No, continue.
I feel like if we, well, blah, 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 I can't speak. What the fuck? If you have like, I agree with you. Like, range is not good for us and good for them. And if they have a way to like have an angle on us where they just can spam us down, then yeah, I agree that it's not really Pogger's gamer moment.
But I agree. And like I was gonna say, yeah, with the comp that we have, I think it could be poked down a little bit more easier. Like if because we're obviously going to TP to the point. I think that would get rid of a contingency for the other team is if we had a Mei instead of a Reaper, so that if they're trying to spam us down from one angle, get rid of it.
Yeah, say it when they spam us down from one angle.
Yeah.
But the thing is, when you play double shield, you want to get 2 angles, so
And if even then, if they get 2 angles, we can shut down the most effective one. Like if there's an Orisa on the high ground and then a Sigma coming around to the little door with the little stairs like right above the point, we can easily fend off the Sigma.
All right, I will take it from here. I think this was great, right? Like a lot of different opinions. Doesn't really matter, to be honest, like who's right or who's not. But we already noticed, right, that we have just different ideas of how we want to even like play this composition. And again, obviously depends on what we play against, on what kind of map we go on here, and so on. But like, I hope you notice a little bit that just talking about it sometimes helps. So, for example, if you, I don't know, before the scrim, I would always encourage you before you kind of go into the scrim, right? Obviously, like, right, like you have to view it as scrim as something precious, right? Like there are 2 hours where 6 players take 2 hours of their life to basically play together. Even like 12 if you put the other team in, and even 14 if you maybe have staff and so on. So like it's right, like there are like a lot of players involved. So I would obviously, if it's something a little bit precious, I would also try to like get the most out of it. Maybe even like prepare it a little bit. Then we come into the question of what viewing. But the only thing I care about is the mindset of, right, this is something important. And we obviously want to get something out of this. So the most important thing, obviously, to get something out of something is always to have a goal. So, for example, if we go to the next scrim and say, okay, we want to play, I don't know, we want to really improve on our brawl strategy. We want to play like this composition, right? Or like a version of this throughout the maps. Obviously, again, we don't have to play it on every map, but let's say on like 80% of all the maps, right? We want to play this because this is what we want to get better at. Then hopefully before the match starts, we want to like talk a little bit, like really briefly about, okay, like how do we even want to execute it, right? And then we also, depending on the style, want to obviously adjust our hero picks, like you say, like Mei or Reaper, the Lucio, the Baptiste, the Lucio, the Brig, and so on. Right? Does this make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's really what I would encourage you. Obviously, right? Like the more, like the higher we get up, or like that's really true. Like it's just, I don't know, like obviously, like the if you get to a professional level at some sort, right? Then obviously you do this like super regularly. So and you need to like either think about on your own or like as a team. Okay, like how serious basically do we take it? If you want, I don't know, like if you want, I can show you maybe the hour schedule if you're interested in this. How it looked like to get a
What
comparison
schedule?
from our team. Like if you have a comparison, right? I can just bring it up if you want. I just like as a comparison. I don't want to like. I just want to show it to have an idea. Like for example, this is like a channel basically schedule for us looks like with the 2 blocks, and we always have this like 30 minutes review of that thing before, where we then talk about basically what we want to do in this and in this scrim. But obviously these are different different goals. Okay. Then let's get back to the actual comp, right? To the actual word. So what we talked about, so like I will try to summarize a little bit and maybe bring us on the same page. So I think all of the things you said obviously make complete sense, and they also like really really correctly. Like to be honest, I think mostly what you talked about is about basically the 2 ways we can win the fight. Either we force them to come to us, or basically we get to them. Like these are the two main ways. Let me just make a different color. These are the 2 main ways how a brawl strategy gets to do this, gets to this close range fight, right? Because this is our win condition. Maybe to like summarize a little bit, like when we're playing a brawl strategy, and I don't really mind with what heroes or whatever, but whenever we play the brawl strategy or style, we always want to be, or like the way we win a fight is that we are really, really good at surviving, right? Like look at the Reaper, look at Baptiste, Ryan, Zarya, and so on, like Mei. They are just really good heroes that can survive for a long time. right? So basically the idea is that this Brawl team just wants to like force themselves into a fight, normally in this close range fights. And what they do then there is they just basically they survive longer than the enemy team. And how did they survive long? Obviously, they try to stay grouped so that all of their AoE effects take place, but also that they can protect each other way better, right? You made the arguments, especially with the Mei wall. We can use the same idea of the Reinhardt shield. If they attack us from one side, then we can just put a Reinhardt shield up. Then after the Reinhardt shield breaks, we can put a Mei wall. Then we can, I don't know, defense matrix. Then we can do something else again. Like we have so many cooldowns that are really good against this one angle. So it's like we are really, really strong to survive a long time against this. Obviously, the enemy team will not play at 6 or not often. At least that's not really effective. They always try to come from different angles, because then in this way we have to use two cooldowns at once, right? Because our Rhino will obviously shield one side and the Mei will wall the other side off, and this happens at the same time. But basically the arguments I want to make here is if we are staying grouped, then this is way better, because imagine if you're not staying grouped, let's say the Mei is here, then even though they're not shooting from different angles, we still have to use two cooldowns at once, because, I mean, why are we not staying together? So that's why being grouped is so much so important, not only for the healing and for the AoE effects, but also for the defensive abilities that are good against one lane. Does it make sense?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
Perfect. So we already basically now know, okay, we're playing Brawl. Our main goal is to basically survive longer than enemy team. And to do this, we want to always be grouped. And obviously, like, how to get even to this, like, or obviously, yeah, like to survive longer. Yeah, what do we want to survive longer? We obviously want to survive longer this close range fight. And then, as I said already, or as you already pointed out perfectly, there are always kind of two ways to get into this close range fight. Number one is to basically objective. It doesn't matter if it's a point, if it's a payload, if it's I don't know, what else do we have? King of the Hill point. I mean, they're also points. So it doesn't really matter, right? Like whatever the objective it is, we just basically put ourselves on this objective, because again, you don't win like Overwatch. You don't win an Overwatch map with winning fights. We win an Overwatch map if we capture the objective. Like think it back to GOATs, right? Like when you played GOATs against, I don't know, like triple DPS or 4 DPS, I guarantee you the GOATs team, they never won a fight. Never. But they won the map. Why? Because they literally just went on there, captured it, because nobody could touch. If they would touch, then they would immediately kind of get killed. And they just got 100%, right? So they just basically survived on this point. This is the same idea we can also perform. And the other thing is obviously we just kind of, let's say, we catch them, right? We just, for example, we run at the Hanzo, or we run at the Sigma, and obviously then the Sigma, I mean, either they let him die, and then we have just a 5-6 situation, which obviously is great, or they will obviously try to help the Sigma. The Risa will come in and they will like use cooldowns and so on, and then we have our close range fight. Does this make sense?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Right, and this is like the very simple, basic, but this is kind of the idea that we always have. And depending on this, obviously, we now can also choose our heroes and so on, depending on the map and the strategy that we're using. So if you want to use a DP, for example, right, then you already said, like, we just want to, with the DP and without a Lucio, I mean, we don't really have the catching element, right? We cannot, like, we can try, I guess, to DP on them, but it is really risky, let's say, like this, that it just destroy the DP before we get there. So yeah, I would just also suggest the easy, like the I don't know, the most common way at least would be right that we just TP on point. And I would completely agree, like we don't really need a Lucio as much, because Lucio is obviously great for speeding. Obviously, yeah, you can also use it for like other things, for healing, or have like have a better variety. But we can also just play a Brig if we want. We can also play a Moira. Like I don't mind, right? Like whatever there is that has the AoE healing and so on. So we can definitely do this. Obviously, then we are kind of really how can I say, like we're really kind of unflexible. We only like really going, okay, we play objective and that's what we do, right? And obviously now I also said like, hey, we want to survive as long as possible. So now I'm looking at the Reaper, the other hero that basically that you mentioned, and I will also agree on this argument, like, hey, we're already winning this close range fight, right? Imagine like the Risa, he walks on point, like she has to, or we should make sure that she has to use her Fortify almost immediately, right? On her cooldowns, they have to use the lamp immediately. Have to use a lot of cooldowns to keep the resources alive, because obviously we will all attack her. So does it really matter too much if you have a Reaper, like if you have more damage on the on the Reaper or not? I don't think it's the, like, I don't think it's we will lose the fight because we cannot force out the people that play that are on point. I think it's more likely that it will just kind of spam us and that we will kind of lose in the long term. So maybe a character that has a defensive option, like for example May with the wall, or something else. Like, I don't know. Also a Tracer would be also fine, because a Tracer can actively distract a Hanzo, for example. Obviously, you will never kill the Hanzo, but if the Hanzo doesn't shoot at us, right, or is not shooting the whole time, this also helps us to not take damage. Like, that's the idea behind it, right? Like, do you understand why I'm saying the Reaper might not be, in the strategy that you choose, the best option?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, if we play a Lucio, for example, then I can definitely see it. Hey, we just like overwhelm them, and the more damage we have, the faster it gets, for sure. But if we really play for this like super stacked, we just play objective, then I think we can also do this. All right. Do you guys have any question when it comes to the kind of strategy behind it, the heroes that we picked, and so on, and all the things we talked about so far?
Not at the moment.
No? All right, perfect. Then let's see what we do. Right, like obviously what we look at right now is, like all of you, what I want you to watch at is like, hey, we have this basic strategy about getting this close range fight, through objective pressure, and then just surviving there as long as possible. So I want to see like how you do it, right? Like how you use the cooldowns and so on. Like how do we kind of make this happen to not get, like, to get the minimum damage as possible all the time. All right, and we won. So, any comments? What have we done really well, and what is maybe something we can improve on?
I think the patience was pretty well done, like playing around the bell and just being cautious of them, like contesting the point, because they weren't like as many numbers as we had on the point, so we had the advantage kind of, even though we were down one. So it's pretty good.
Yeah, exactly. Somebody else wants to say something?
Seems
played-
like target focus could have been a bit cleaner. Like that Sigma was on the point for a while.
Okay.
Yeah, and we played well around the cover. Like, we used the immortality, we used the cover right to move around, rotate against their comp.
Yeah. No, exactly, right? Like, obviously the idea that we also, like, the strategy behind it worked perfectly, right? Like, the only, like, some minor things here, again, I will not point them out that much. I will just say them really quick, because I want to be more focused on the whole team. But for example, this rotation can be better. Like, we can even wait if we really like force them out first, the Hanzo, and then make this DP, because I mean, I don't think we go for the surprise here, right? I think especially with a Hanzo, they will know we have the Symmetra. So I think we rather make this like safe and sound, force them out first, and then we go here, than waiting. We wait kind of a while for this run. I think this whole process can be a little bit faster. And then also our Symmetra, obviously, a little bit of a what can I say, miss radio, like a little bit late, right? Especially, I think you just missed the TP there. This was
I
happened.
missed that the timing.
Yeah, and this is fine. All right. And obviously, right, we immediately kind of, what I really like here is that we all together go to the left side. We're not splitting ourselves up. Why is this important? And we just talked about it, right? AoE effects and so on. Like, imagine there's, I don't know, somebody hitting us from two sides, from here and from here, right? If we're all together, then our runner can just go here and they block both, right? If we're splitting up, then our runner cannot just block the whole damage for the team. That's great. So yeah, and obviously now it's just like staying point, making sure that they're not coming there. One important thing is I really want to point out here also is a little bit with the Zarya thing. make sure, like, our goal right now is to basically survive longer as possible. I know you're playing Sai, and I know obviously there's always super tempting with like, hey, I want to get bubble, I want to get energy and so on. But because we have just so much more damage, like so extremely more sustain on this point compared to them. It's the same idea why Reaper is maybe not the best pick, is that we have already so much. So basically the idea should mostly be, okay, if I want to bubble, I never bubble for energy in this moment, I always just bubble to survive, basically, right? Like that I can deal more damage in the Sigma, or that my Reinhardt can swing and so on. And this is should be the intention. Obviously the bubble here is great, but there's another bubble afterwards also, which could have maybe used a little bit differently. We use the lamp there, sure, obviously to survive, it's great. We also like hide this out. Just keep going. I like, by the way, that the Reaper takes this little off angle here from the other side, which is great because you also have your shift cooldown to survive this. Like, you can always do this as a Reaper when you have your shift up, right? Like, then you can always be like kind of away from the Reinhardt shield or away from your protection. Or maybe even, like, to be honest, you could even do this if you want, because again, you have to shift up and you can like deal the necessary damage. And then basically when they attack you, you can always shift back, and then when your shift cooldown is not ready, you literally just stay behind the Reinhardt and be safe there. And when you have shift again, then you can go around or TP and so on to get this angle on, which you already have. Like, this is right. This is perfect. This kind of setup we have here, especially with this idea. So we did this also really well. Like, this bubble, obviously, right? Like, needs to be more for protection. And basically, the moment they touch again, we force them out again there. Yeah, and then obviously Doomfist comes from behind. A great strategy to die early as Symmetra and then come back as Doomfist. Was all planned. And obviously that's why our Doomfist finished up. Yeah. Alright, great. So, even swap to Lucio to come back faster. Then, yeah, anything else you want to say about the first point?
No, there was a great execution, so...
Yeah, was great, right? So, like, the takeaways from there especially, like, for if we do it another time or we play it differently, basically, the takeaway especially is there that if we get TP somewhere, we need to make sure that we kind of go together afterwards, because I know a lot of teams who TP somewhere and then they do this, right? You made it perfectly. I hope this was with attention that we already talked about. Hey, we want to stay here. So this is the first takeaway, which you did perfectly. The second takeaway is with the Reaper thing. Like, hey, as you said, as you did it really well, taking angles when you have shift up. And if you have no more shift, then you stay with your team. Desire basically makes sure if you play against something like this, again, we will always win the close range fight. It's more about surviving. So really make sure that the bubbles, especially the friendly bubble, right? The self bubble, sure, go for energy with self bubble, but the friendly bubble is really only for basically making sure our runner doesn't die. And yeah, I think this was the kind of the biggest kind of takeaways, which we did really well. So let's see what we do now. Obviously now we don't have a Symmetra, we don't have a Lucio. Maybe what could be a fight plan, for example, right? We talked about this last time a little bit. Obviously, we just say, hey, we have perfect ult tracking, because, I mean, we always have perfect ult tracking, right? But now we see even the numbers. So, yeah. How could the fight plan be?
We could try to force out the Baptist window from them, wait, and then engage afterwards. Because then they will like a lot of more damage.
Okay. Who said this? Sorry, who said this right now?
Me.
You said this? Okay.
Actually.
Somebody else? Like, what do you guys think about this fight plan? Like the way it's set. Like, you might.
I think when we go on the right side, they will never go for a window on the stairs, but that's only a Baptiste thing, I think.
Yeah.
But when they go for a window on the left side of from their is on the left side, it will be dumb because they cannot get much value from this window when they place it there. So
yeah. Like you poke the right nose, right? Like the important thing is, like, I'm Lucio here. I hear this fight plan of like, okay, hey, we want to force out window and then just back off. I'm like, okay, yeah, great idea. So what do we do now actually? Right? Like, I think there's a great idea of forcing out a window, but there's a crucial element missing in this plan. It's like how? right? Like, do we do this here? Do we just go up? Do we go here and just wait for them to window? Like, how do we do it, right? Like, I'm Lucio right now. I want to do things. I want to force out the window, but I don't know like how I can do it, right? Obviously, I know as a Lucio, hey, we want to force out window, and you also said we want to kite back. So because I'm a clever Lucio player, obviously I don't use amp speed to go in because I know, hey, we just bait out some things and then we speed out. But I still don't know like how we do it. Like, do you, Jürgeli, like, do you get what I mean with this?
Yeah,
Like,
it's unclear what's the plan.
exactly. Like, I think the idea is definitely. I mean, I don't. Like, again, it doesn't really matter if the idea is right or wrong. I don't think there is a right or wrong in this case, anyways. But it needs to be like when we make a fight plan, it needs to be make sure that we have kind of something substantial, like right, like something that we real that we can actually execute. That's why in the head, I don't want to I don't want to make a go back to this thing, but always have this idea of like, hey, like what, where, and when, right? Like, what do we use, when and where? I think the when is already, or like, I mean, kind of partially is a little bit there. We want to speed out when they window, but maybe we want to also know that, okay, like how do we do it? Like the what do we do? Or maybe even where do we go? Okay, then maybe like next try. Well, obviously everybody can chip in, right? Like it's a team thing. Even though, yes, we have obviously somebody who is responsible for the ult tracking, for the fight planning, everybody can also make a suggestion or like add up on this. So what could be maybe a more substantial, like a better kind of fight plan, right? Like just like, right, we're in this position here right now. Let's go
I
back.
think what we could do is we could have the Doomfist go left and then like uppercut and slam on them after like the moment we engage through going up those main stairs. Try and force them off the high ground by like brawling out. We can commit an MO if we need to, and then keep the BAP on the high ground to make them drop off the point, and our BAP can window on the high ground while we're forcing point.
So basically, we want to pinch over the Doomfist, right? Like coming from here, and then we want to post them off, and then we window from top.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sounds fine. Sounds like a plan, right? Like obviously the question is like maybe we want to use the window before, because if they just window us here, then maybe we have to back off. But from the idea, I think it's something we can try out, right? So obviously the next information or next thing we need to say, or the next kind of piece of communication we need to deliver, would then be the Doomfist. Right? Because I mean he's the one doing things. We just talked about cooldowns right now, not about ultimates. So obviously then the Doomfist should say, okay, I think this is a great idea, or I think this is shit. If Doomfist says like, no, I cannot do it, then we cannot do it. He doesn't have to say like why. I mean, he's a Doomfist player. If he says he cannot do it, or if he has a like right, then we have a problem. Does it make sense? So that could be the next kind of thing to say. Okay, but I don't want to like dwell too much into this idea of fight planning. Or do you guys want to like any questions in this regard? No?
No.
Okay, then let's just basically see what we're doing. And we still focus on the same thing. Like the way we win a fight, right, is to get into this close range fight and survive longer than the enemy team. So let's see how we do this.
Огонь по готовности. Cease your resistance.
Yeah. I mean, what's going on? You said that you struggle with against double shield. You played 2 fights. You won 2 fights.
Well, that's one of the good maps.
Okay. I mean, I thought we wanted. I thought you picked Hanamura because it was something you
Wait,
struggled with.
is it the right code?
I used
think
to
it
code.
Yeah.
Yes, it was right.
Wait, what the
Oh.
fuck?
Okay. I mean, I used
I
to
think
code.
you
it too.
froze. I think it's. Oh god, wait.
There's a that scrim where we were like having the opposite, where we pushed 5 minutes on second point.
Yeah,
Okay.
this isn't the scrim from yesterday. There isn't
Yesterday?
Batman. There was a DPS called Batman from yesterday. Or like not
Yeah,
yesterday.
that's
last
the thing.
time.
It's a scrim from.
Well, yesterday we didn't play. Or you mean 2 days ago?
Last time, yeah.
We didn't play Hanamura.
Did we not?
Yeah, no,
Yes,
no.
we don't
Yeah,
But it
play
was
Hanamura.
a,
Wait, am I dumb?
Yes, maybe.
no, we did Anubis, right?
Yeah, Anubis. What you mean?
Yeah, Anubis would be a good map where
Yeah.
we can see how we struggle against it.
Mm-hmm.
I'll send it to you.
Sorry.
That's all
Yeah,
fine.
my bad. That's just dumb from me. Wait, but
It's all good. I mean,
I'm really confused.
it's completely fine. Like obviously, right? Like I think we could still take away a lot of things, or hopefully some things in here and there. And obviously, this way we also see like how we do it right? Just make a quick kind of summary. Like what have we done really well here? First of all, we stay together. Right? We were grouped. So obviously we have like so much more sustain in these close range fights than they do, because they all shoot in one direction. So obviously Ryan is perfect compared to a Sigma. Like Ryan can stay alive way longer. I would even maybe say, because we have this fight here, if it would be me, I would just window here, to be honest, and just like I don't really care. Like it's not about the window, obviously, right? It's not about the damage. It's about the double healing, because we talked about it before, right? Like our goal is to survive longer than they do. So the double healing is so much more valuable than anything else. But yeah, this obviously, I mean, it worked also without, so perfectly, right? A little bit problematic here is like we push in, and we are not really that synchronized, right? Like what I mean with this, I know it like looks just a little bit, but there is actually a significant distance between the Baptiste and the Reinhardt, especially because our Reinhardt pushes in right now, right, and without a bubble. Like I don't know if this was planned that you bubble the Doomfist, but as I said before, like I think it's very more about like the surviving factor, and our Doomfist, I don't know, like I'm pretty sure like if we push in here right now, I think he should be fine, considering that our Reinhardt obviously takes all the attention. So yeah, I think a bubbling Reinhardt in this kind of close range fights is always better. The Doomfist can just like take care of himself basically in his close range fights, and make sure that he's make sure basically that he makes back on his own, and yeah. And obviously then we just run him over, and then from here on out we keep staying together. That's what I mean, right? Like here, this idea of I know obviously it's so tempting as a Reinhardt to just like go back, fire strike, but this window is meant for you that you survive. Like if you go behind this, we cannot double heal you anymore. Like our Baptiste is like, oh shit, I mean this sucks, right? So even though like it doesn't matter how tempting this is, I would recommend to you like that it's kind of a bad habit a little bit to just basically go for like go in front and get the healing basically, right? Like even push into the window if you want, whatever you want, like whatever the plan is. But the idea is really, okay, like if we window, the only one who stays behind the window is maybe a McCree if we have one, and a Baptiste. The other team is just saying, okay, we have a window here, that means we have double healing in this position, we just literally W, right? Does it make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, and yeah, other than this, I mean, there's not much to say, right? We just survive. Be careful here, like a lot.
Could we maybe watch like the first fight after the second point on the other code? Because there we'll see us struggle.
Yeah, sure. Just wanted to quickly summarize the good things. So second fight on attack, right?
Yes, we are attacking with a brawl comp. We won the first fight on first point, but afterwards it goes down.
Okay, so the second fight. So the first attempt on here, or the second fight?
On the second point,
Yeah, like we win this now here. So like the first fight here.
Yes.
Okay.
That would be a good one.
Right. Okay, let's watch it, right? Like think a little bit. Like okay, what's even happening? We're playing again a brawl composition. We're playing with the Mei right now with Lucio. So 2 options: objective or catching. We can choose both, I think, with the characters we have right now. We're playing against a spam comp especially again, like Roadhog and Junket and so on. What will happen? They will just take a lot of angles. Like the Junket will make sure that he spams from one side, the Roadhog will be the other side, and then the Risa, McCree, and so on from the other side. So that's kind of the idea that we have. What we have ultimates. Mayult, obviously great for point control, also for catching, both things. And Hainun is great for making space, for basically, right, like going to point or forcing them away. And what do they have? They have Hainun, so basically the same. We have to make sure that we have, like, have this in our mind. Okay, then let's just see what we do. A bit of scouting from the D.Va. Now we decide to go right side.
冻住，不许走！
It's too early. May freeze.
Helden sterben nicht. Verlieren wird nerf this.
Shut down the bomb. And we lose from here. Okay. Yeah, now it's your turn. What do you think we did really well, and what was maybe some things we could do better?
Well, the initial engage was good. Like we go all right side, we stay together, and we commit the ults we called. Because the call was we use May ult with a Deadeye. Afterwards we trip over ourselves. Like, can you pause for a moment?
Sure.
The May wall is blocking the Deadeye from both sides. Then we begin to split up because 3 or 4 of us go into tunnel chasing the hawk, if I'm right.
Yeah.
The hawk. And afterwards we just split and split more.
Okay. Right. Like basically, also like a few things about maybe land just from a strategic point. I would not recommend using these two ultimates together because they basically have the same purpose. Like if you use a May ult here or like somewhere on point, what will happen? They will try to evade this, right? They will just basically go away from this position. The same thing they do if we have if we use Hainun. They will also, generally speaking, if they don't invest more, they will also try to run away. Right? So like they're basically two ultimates that have the same purpose. The same way would be also Baptiste ultimate. That's why you never want to use really Baptiste ultimate and Hainun. Because the purpose is the same. We only need kind of one thing to have an advantage, and then if they invest also something, then we can kind of double down on this, right? But generally speaking, like we don't need the if we don't need to kind of freeze, like basically we don't need the damage from Hainun to kill somebody if somebody is frozen. Does it make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because he's already defenseless.
Yeah, exactly. So it's more like this zoning tool, especially like, right? If we think about the same thing in Hanamura, if we just do it like, hey, okay, we know obviously they have no D.Va, so it's a free May ult. If we can just May ult here, they have to run away behind this. I mean, that's perfect. Like then we have the full point for us. Then what we can redo? The D.Va obviously goes all over here, like takes care of the Junkrat, right? And the rest of us, I mean, we literally just stay here as a Reinhardt. I will just be AFK, holding the left click. I never have to go in here. Like why? They kind of like they have to like come to us right now, right? Like we holding point. Then I have my Baptiste, my McCree's just standing here and waiting. Like why should I peek them? I will just wait for them. You can even like flank here a little bit if you want. The Lucio also, I guess Lucio can stay with the Ryan. Like sorry, right? Like I'm thinking about the setup like this: McCree, Baptiste, Ryan, Lucio, D.Va somewhere here, obviously taking care of the Junkrat. And what else do we have? Oh yeah, the May, right? So nobody from us can get attacked. The only thing they have to do, or the only thing they can do, is going on point. Right? So they cannot attack us. They have to touch point, and then if they do this, we wall. I mean, we just swing at them, right? We can just poke out here, come from here, and also attack them. That's how we kind of win the fight. Like, do you guys understand what I mean with this?
Yep.
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
and I like the big takeaway from here is because as I said, right, I want to like I repeat some concept, but I feel like they are really important, and I want to really like like force them into your brains a little bit. What you try to, like, how you think about this, or like how you also execute this, is with the concept of, hey, how can we kill them as fast as possible, right? High Noon and Window together, like how can we make the most damage as quick as possible and just run them over? This, I don't even want to say that's bad. I guess it can work, but I think what is way more consistent with the heroes and with the strategy we play is we just think about differently. Okay, like how can we survive the longest? And the way we can survive the longest is to push them basically away from the point, make sure they can only attack us from one angle, or like two, but we have the D.Va for this. And then we just literally just wait, right? Like we have still maybe a High Noon left for us for if they push up and so on, and we can just use the resources as we want afterwards. Okay, like this makes sense. This different mindset when we play this composition.
Yeah,
Yeah, perfect.
because I had the chasing mindset, so
Yeah. And obviously then there's some little mechanical things, right? Like we High Noon without the D.Va defense matrix, and so on. And obviously then exactly what you said, like why do we die right now? Like look at this, like because we split, right? So we cannot support each other anymore. So that's why like one after each other we just die. The same thing also with the D.Va bomb and the shatter, right? I don't know if this was intentional, but obviously again I would just use the D.Va bomb defensively, like to create space, right? I mean they're shattered right now. Like the important character, the Ana here, if you just like boost on her and just kill her, is like we don't need the D.Va bomb to kill them, right? Like I agree. If they have here Zenyatta with a trance, right? This is Zen, then we can use more. But we don't need to use like 2 ultimates against like 0. Like I mean, we already have such an advantage with the shatter that we don't need to use more. You also, like Netta, right? Like the coach Netta.
no, I never do.
No? Okay. No, anyways, like he always has this like I don't know, he calls Evan Flow basically, if you want to like he basically the whole thing what I try to explain here a little bit. He puts these things in really really easy to understand words. But yeah, doesn't matter. Like I think we also get the idea here. Okay. Right, and the May dies, like May mostly dies because not together, right? Like May would have not died here. And yeah. Obviously now they have an ultimate, right? And we don't. So obviously they get something out of this. It's not surprising. And obviously then now comes the 2CP thing, right? Like where they have a faster respawn than we do, and we lose the fight. Yeah. Anything else you want to say about this fight? Makes sense? Any questions about this? Do we want to go over something else? Like specific on this last fight?
No, not from me.
No. Yeah, was also quiet. I hope that everybody is still here, not asleep.
Well, I can't really say
Yeah,
much
I'm good.
because I wasn't playing.
Yeah, I mean, sure. I mean, you can still like obviously look at the team, right? But yeah, sure, of course. Okay, great. It's just always difficult with an online thing because I cannot see your faces, so I don't know if you're just agreeing or if you're just basically right, like it's a big question mark in your face. So if you just say okay and so, this always helps. Alright, perfect. We get a pick, right? Like, I mean, okay, slow down real quick, talking about plans. Okay, they have Orisa Bongo, like a Riptire, right? What we have, we don't really have much. We have a Window and we have a Lucio Soundbearer. Okay, so I guess we can maybe use somehow Window to kind of get to the point or like get to the close range fight, because as we know, right, like they're really, as you said also at the start, at the very start, beginning, they're really, really good at making it really hard for us to get to them. Right, like that's very good. Like when we are in range, they're in range. That's really important. Like it's really good for them. So we want to make sure that this moment, like this, basically the rotation, is as small as possible, or like the time that we use to get there is kind of as low as possible, because that's where they're really good. So another way to make it easy, kind of to make it, or like make it easier for us to make a rotation, is if we use resources. For example, a Lucio speed boost, right? Makes it faster. But we can also do the same thing with just a Baptiste window here. I'm not saying it's a good idea. I'm just giving an example. If you Baptiste window here, right, then mostly, even though they have a shield, I mean, the Orisa shield breaks like nothing, right? If the May and the Queen and the Baptiste shoots once, but the Orisa is down. So basically, what I want to say is, if we as a brawl composition, like windows somewhere here, I'm pretty sure they will still go away. because they're like, I mean, they're scared and they will die if not, right? So and then we can use this window to literally just walk. The only one who can stay here maybe a little bit longer is Baptiste because it's double healing, right? Like if we fight here now, we have double healing, so the Baptiste could stay if you're confident that you can survive this. Not right if you're playing against the trades also, obviously, then you go with us. But maybe against this team, maybe if we know, okay, even this, especially in this situation here, like the junket is dead, maybe we can say, yeah, no, what, I'm safe here. I can just stay. But that's the idea. Like, do you get the idea, like how this window would help us to basically make this rotation safer for us? And in this way, obviously, it means we don't use that many cooldowns. Like, does it understandable?
Yep, it is.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. Like, I'm obviously right. Like, it's just an example. We don't have to do it. I think, especially right now, we have a pick, so maybe we don't even have to use anything. We can just say, "Oh, look, we're good. We get picked." Then fast. Because obviously, right, mainly because the distance is close. So how about we just speed in? We don't even have, we can just use Lucio M speed. We don't need to use ultimate. And yeah. So, sorry, maybe I should just. Okay, so we get a nice wall off of the Roadhog, which obviously is amazing because you cannot just run. You cannot run away. Right. Oh, great beat there to counter the Riptire. Unfortunately, D.Va still dies. Right, and now they have like the bongo, right? Like that's what I like. That's a little bit what kind of this admin like. They basically they're now have an advantage, just because they have an ultimate, right? Like we have, even though we are 6, they are 5, we still cannot push in because they have an advantage, right? And because of the time I will just say it, there are always like 3 things you can do with an advantage. Like, if we are in a disadvantage, like number 1 thing we can do now, like we can do here, number 1, we run. Right, but we just avoid this. We just hide. We kite away. We just basically go out. We just try to survive. We run away. Number 2 is we invest. So basically, we could just say, hey, okay, we just window here. Then it's basically a game of chicken a little bit, right? Like who will stay longer? And I'm pretty sure if we window here, maybe even lamp here, if we really have to, we will win. Or imagine we have the D.Va still alive. We can just defense matrix. They're pretty sure, even though they have a ton of damage, we will still kill the Risa faster. So the Risa or the McCready have to run away. Right? Like this could be a different idea. Basically, we invest resources, so we make it even. They have an ultimate, they have an advantage, so we can now also invest 1. We don't like really important because looking at the last fight, we don't need to invest 5 ults, right? We don't need to only use a Mei ult, a McCree ult, and a High Noon. Like 1 could be enough, and if we're really not sure that 1 is enough, then we can also use a second one. Right? We can maybe like here say, okay, we High Noon, or like we window, and if you really want to, okay, we can also High Noon afterwards, like behind it, right? So that we make sure that they have to go away, as an example. But I think, to be honest, because especially imagine the D.Va would be still alive, the defense matrix and the window would be enough. Does it make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. And then the third option, just to say it, is basically if we don't have this, we cannot run away because I don't know, it's overtime. We cannot invest things because we don't have any ultimates. The third thing is basically we take a risk. Whatever risk this can be, like individual or as a team. Basically, a risk would be, hey, we have to touch or we need to, then we take the risk of just still pushing in. Obviously, we have to use shield all the time. We have to use a lot of resources to survive this, but it's just a risk we have to take because we cannot do much. Or we take an individual risk that we say, hey, you know what, this sucks for us, but we have to. So as a McCree, I would just, I don't know, go for a crazy off angle and try to get a pick or something like this because they already have an advantage in some sorts. So maybe I can just take this risky flank. I know it's risky because I'm not grouped, but that's maybe the only way we can win. Does it make sense? These three things?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay. Then just let's finish just this fight. Then we can make a quick summary. Okay. Let's fight this over faster than I thought. Obviously, if the Rhino died, Rhino's like it's really important for us because of the massive defensive advantage she gives us. Yeah, and I guess with the Mei also reset. Okay. Yeah. Then, any last questions for this session? Anything else you really want to talk about?
No, I think it was pretty clear.
Not for me.
Okay, great. Then, right, like the most important thing, the takeaways I think from the session today is number one. I hope at least, if it's not clear, I encourage you to talk about this, talk it out. We have the same understanding. Standing of the comp. Right at the start, we talked about okay, when Lucio, when Brig, when Symmetra, when Reaper, when McCree, this needs to be clear. Like I'm not saying if it's right or wrong, but it needs to be clear. Even if 6 players have the quote unquote bad idea or like the wrong strategy, if this even exists, it's still better than 2 players thinking, okay, we want to rush them, and the other 4 think we have to stay on point. So it's really important. Doesn't matter what composition you play or what strategy you play. The second thing, we played the brawl, right? So I think all of you had this perfectly into that we have obviously close range fight, objective, or like catching. I think you all said this, right? Now hopefully now maybe the mix is more like structured. So this was perfect, and we did this really well. One thing is a big takeaway: if we play ever brawl, and it doesn't matter against what matchup, our priority is to survive. It's not to kill, because we are so much stronger if we just survive longer. We will most likely always get the kills. So all the cooldowns, all the positions, all the choices that we make individually should all have the same goal of like we survive longer than they do. Of course, yes, we need to get there, right? We need to get in this close range fight, but we survive longer. And then the third biggest takeaway I would say is a little bit with the ultimates, which I think was it's just something I think a bigger part is when we use ultimates, I can just say even like don't overinvest ultimates, like ults. Wait, I know how to write it down. Like don't use 2 ults for same purpose. Right, we had the Mei ult and the McCree ult, which basically try to do the same thing, right? If they don't if they don't use anything, like if they don't have a trance or I don't know, like a bunch of cooldowns that we say, okay, the Mei ult is really not happening or like it doesn't really help us there, then I would just say, okay, like let's just kill them with the Mei ult, right, and keep the High Noon maybe for a rainy day. Or the thing with the shatter and the bomb makes completely sense, right? If we shatter and then they use a beat or something like this, of course we can bomb. Or if they shatter and they use a Brotok ultimate, I mean, okay, maybe we just want to defense matrix this, but you get the idea, right? Then of course we can invest more, but I don't think a plank shatter which connects perfectly, I don't think needs to be followed up by a bomb. And this is obviously just an example for the overall way. Okay, clear? These 3 things.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Perfect. Then we end the session here. I can give you the screenshot so you can have this written down. Obviously, there were like a lot of smaller details, but I think these are the biggest 3 takeaways. Make sure when you practice now and when you go to scrims, don't try to do all these 3 things at once. Don't expect that everything happens at once. Focus on maybe one thing. Make sure that you do this really well, and then you go and practice the second thing. And when you have this really well, then you go to the third. Okay?
Okay.
Right, perfect. Then, then it was a pleasure.
Thank you for
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank
no
you.
problem.
Thank
And
you.
I guess Cryo is just stay in contact if you guys want to have another session at some point. Feel free to text